A key clause in Hamilton's Ferrari contract just ran out. He's free to go wherever he wants. Want to know which team offered him a €42 million deal? Watch till the end. This one's for you. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. What once seemed like a dream pairing between a Formula One legend and the sport's most iconic team is now unraveling in dramatic fashion, sending shockwaves through the paddock and electrifying every corner of the motorsport world. Lewis Hamilton's relationship with Ferrari has reached an extraordinary low point, marked not by public outbursts but by a chilling silence, telling glances, and a trail of behind-the-scenes confrontations that reveal a deeply fractured alliance. The seven-time world champion, once heralded as the man to restore Ferrari's former glory, is now weighing an exit so stunning, so symbolically seismic, that it could redefine the power dynamics of the entire grid. Those within Hamilton's inner circle say the trust has evaporated. Promises made during initial contract negotiations, equal treatment, competitive machinery, full transparency, have been, in his view, casually abandoned. The situation has shifted from friction to full-blown rupture, fueled by suspicion, resentment, and a growing belief that the team has quietly and deliberately pivoted all its resources toward Charles Leclerc. In the garages, subtle gestures speak volumes. Engineers who used to hover around Hamilton's car now spend more time on the other side of the garage. When new parts arrive on race weekends, they're almost always fitted to Leclerc's SF25 first. Key aerodynamic upgrades, floor configurations, rear suspension tweaks, and underbody cooling packages are repeatedly rolled out to the Monégasque before the Britain. The technical team insists it's due to testing logistics, but Hamilton, armed with a career's worth of telemetry experience, isn't buying the excuses. He's seen the data. He's traced the deltas. The gaps in acceleration out of slow corners. The inconsistent torque delivery in qualifying trim. The lower-than-expected top speeds on straights. When he demanded side-by-side overlays of engine deployment strategies from the previous 3 race weekends, what he found left him speechless. The energy recovery systems on his car were operating with more conservative thresholds. His throttle maps were duller. His downforce levels curiously higher than intended for circuits like Spa and Silverstone, effectively dragging performance from a car he knew should have been fighting for pole. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. Team meetings have grown tense. What used to be collaborative debriefs have turned into uncomfortable standoffs. During a recent Friday briefing in Hungary, Hamilton allegedly interrupted a strategic presentation mid-sentence to question why Leclerc had access to a more aggressive tire offset, one that wasn't even offered as an option during his one-on-one with the strategists earlier that morning. The room went silent. According to someone who was present, Hamilton's tone was razor-sharp, his voice cold. He wasn't emotional. He was precise, controlled, furious, and perhaps more dangerous than ever. It was no longer about feelings, it was about facts. And those facts, in his mind, pointed to a campaign being undermined from within. Not accidentally, deliberately. The tension isn't confined to technical matters. Personal dynamics have deteriorated rapidly. Hamilton has reportedly distanced himself from several senior figures within the team, including certain engineers he once considered trusted allies. His longtime performance coach has begun spending long stretches away from the Ferrari garage altogether, often seen speaking quietly with other teams' personnel, particularly those in Red Bull uniforms. His race engineer, visibly exasperated during several radio exchanges, has had to walk a tightrope between loyalty to the driver and pressure from the team's command center. In Canada, a seemingly minor dispute over pit stop timing exploded post-race into a full-scale argument in the hospitality suite, with Hamilton accusing the team of manipulating his strategy to favor Leclerc. No one raised their voice, but the energy in the room was said to be ice-cold rage. And when Leclerc tried to defuse the tension privately later that evening, Hamilton reportedly walked past him without saying a word. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. Meanwhile, a new narrative is taking shape, one that involves Christian Horner, Adrian Newey, and a very different garage. Red Bull Racing, once the archenemy in Hamilton's fiercest battles, has quietly emerged as the frontrunner in what is now the most high-profile pursuit of a driver in modern F1 history. Early denials have given way to careful, calculated silence. Behind the scenes, discussions have accelerated. Red Bull's leadership has reportedly drafted a performance-based contract that includes clauses for technical involvement, sponsor alignment, and even influence over junior development programs. While Verstappen's position remains outwardly unshaken, internally, there's a strategic debate raging. Some believe the move could fracture the current team dynamic. Others argue it could create a super team so dominant, even Mercedes wouldn't dare challenge them directly. Hamilton's camp, once reluctant to consider Red Bull seriously, is now examining every detail of the offer. The idea of working alongside the minds that built the most dominant car in the hybrid era holds undeniable appeal. There's also the symbolic weight of such a move, leaving Ferrari not just to escape a toxic situation, but to strike back with the very team that has defined dominance since 2021. The thought of battling Leclerc from the other side of the pit lane, with a car finally tailored to his strengths, is believed to be motivating Hamilton more than ever. He doesn't just want to win. He wants to rewrite the final chapter. To show the world that the fire inside him hasn't dimmed. That his hunger is still there. That legacy isn't something you talk about. It's something you earn, again and again. And make no mistake, the message behind this possible move isn't just directed at Ferrari. It's for every team that underestimated him. Every engineer who second-guessed his feedback. Every strategist who hedged their bets on a younger driver. Hamilton, even now, refuses to be remembered as a fading legend. He's not fading, he's evolving. He's adapting. He's preparing for what may be the most explosive comeback in the sport's history. A shift so powerful it could destabilize everything from Red Bull's internal politics to Mercedes' long-term plans. Even the FIA is believed to be monitoring the situation closely, aware that such a blockbuster transfer would bring unprecedented attention and pressure to a championship already bursting with tension. What's coming isn't just a transfer. It's a declaration. A warning. A reckoning. The greatest driver of his generation, pushed to the edge by betrayal and politics, is about to make the boldest decision of his life. Not because he needs to, but because he refuses to be silenced. And when the time comes, when the dust settles and the contract is signed, the entire world will know, Lewis Hamilton was never finished. He was simply waiting for the right moment to strike. The situation surrounding Lewis Hamilton has transformed from a growing frustration into a full-scale disruption of the Formula One landscape. What began as subtle signs of disconnect between driver and team has now developed into an unstoppable sequence of events that no one, neither executives in Maranello, strategists in Milton Keynes, nor fans across the globe, was fully prepared for. The dream scenario of seeing the most successful driver in history bringing Ferrari back to glory has not only faltered, it has collapsed under the weight of expectations, technical shortcomings, and a carefully concealed legal trapdoor that has just been blown wide open. Inside Ferrari, the tension had been building for months. Engineers privately admitted that the SF-25 had been developed with a philosophical approach that didn't align with Hamilton's driving preferences. Leclerc's feedback shaped much of the car's foundational handling characteristics, and while the team believed Hamilton's adaptability would compensate, the results on track told a vastly different story. The rear instability, the unpredictable front-end response, the inconsistent power delivery in traction zones, these were not just minor performance issues. They were symptoms of a deeper failure to integrate Hamilton's driving style into the car's DNA. Behind closed doors, race debriefs became more strained. Communication between Hamilton and his race engineer grew increasingly clipped. Telemetry showed him trying drastically different setup configurations, often diverging from Leclerc's baseline in an effort to create some kind of mechanical harmony. But no matter the adjustments, the underlying issues remained. And as each race passed without a Q3 appearance or meaningful points finish, the morale within Hamilton's camp deteriorated rapidly. The pressure wasn't just internal, it was contractual. Unknown to most outside his inner circle, Hamilton's management had quietly embedded an obscure clause into his 2-year Ferrari deal. It was designed to protect him in the event that the competitive promises made during negotiations were not honored. The clause, buried deep in legal language, outlined a very specific performance threshold. If Hamilton were to fail to qualify for Q3 in 5 consecutive races and simultaneously fail to score points in 2 back-to-back events, he would gain complete autonomy to negotiate with any other team. No exit fee, no buyout, no restrictions. It was a form of insurance against mediocrity, a silent mechanism that would only trigger under extreme competitive underperformance. The circumstances required to activate the clause were considered highly improbable at the time the deal was signed. Yet improbability became reality. After a string of compromised qualifying sessions, mechanical reliability issues, and strategic blunders, Hungary and Silverstone became the final nails in the coffin. The double retirement, followed by an anonymous, uncompetitive weekend at one of Hamilton's most successful circuits, confirmed that both conditions of the clause had been met. In the span of 2 races, Hamilton transitioned from a locked-in Ferrari driver to a completely free agent with no strings attached. The moment the legal green light was confirmed, the paddock dynamic shifted. Red Bull, ever alert to market disruptions and seismic talent opportunities, reacted instantly. Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, known for their ruthless efficiency in turning chaos into advantage, began working on a package that would not only appeal to Hamilton's competitive instincts but also to his brand, legacy, and long-term goals. What emerged from those meetings was not a simple contract, it was a blueprint for a revolution. The offer, confirmed by multiple high-level sources, includes a guaranteed 1-year deal worth $42 million, with performance-based triggers for extension. But the monetary value is just a surface detail. The architecture of the proposal reveals an offer crafted with meticulous attention to everything Hamilton represents. Red Bull has committed to full technical equality, identical machinery, unrestricted access to telemetry, and no designated team leader. The car, setup tools, simulator data, and strategic calls would be shared equally between Verstappen and Hamilton, a seismic shift from Red Bull's historical model of protecting a clear number 1 driver. The commercial component of the deal is even more astonishing. Hamilton would retain full rights to his existing personal sponsors, including those that may conflict with Red Bull's portfolio. In a stunning concession, Red Bull has proposed co-branded campaigns featuring Hamilton and Verstappen, marketed globally through partnerships with Puma, Red Bull Media House, and external platforms like Netflix, which is reportedly preparing a full-length, multi-episode documentary capturing Hamilton's transition and the formation of a super team unlike anything Formula One has ever seen. The proposal also outlines Hamilton's continued freedom to pursue projects off-track. Fashion ventures, philanthropic initiatives, music production, environmental advocacy, all will be supported, not limited. Red Bull has agreed to schedule flexibility during the season to accommodate major personal engagements, as long as they do not directly interfere with race weekends. Such freedom is virtually unprecedented in the team's history and is believed to be one of the key reasons Hamilton is seriously considering the offer. Inside Verstappen's camp, the mood is tense but measured. While the idea of reuniting with Hamilton in the same garage reopens old wounds, there's also an acknowledgement of the competitive legacy such a pairing could create. Verstappen has spent the last few seasons unchallenged within his team. Bringing Hamilton in could reignite the intensity that defined their infamous 2021 battle. And for Verstappen, defeating Hamilton with equal machinery would be the ultimate validation. At Ferrari, there is shock, confusion, and a sense of betrayal. Executives are scrambling to reinterpret the clause, hoping for a loophole or delay tactic. But legal experts close to the situation insist the clause's language is airtight. The Scuderia is now forced to confront the prospect of losing their marquee signing less than a year into his contract, losing him, no less, to their most hated rival. PR teams are working around the clock to prepare contingency messaging, while internal discussions rage about whether to promote a reserve driver, accelerate Carlos Sainz's potential return, or trigger another high-profile move. The political implications are massive. Sponsors are nervous. Team principals are furious. Drivers are watching closely. The notion of Hamilton and Verstappen not only coexisting but collaborating under one roof sends shockwaves through every strategic plan on the grid. It challenges assumptions, destabilizes power balances, and forces every other team to reassess their long-term vision. Mercedes, once Hamilton's home, now looks on from the sidelines, helpless, reflective, perhaps even regretful. Meanwhile, McLaren, Aston Martin, and Audi are believed to have made quiet contact in case Red Bull's deal stalls or fractures. The fans, of course, are erupting with speculation. Social platforms are saturated with predictions, mock liveries, fantasy championship battles, and animated debates about garage politics. Will they crash into each other again? Will team orders survive the weight of 2 alpha drivers? Will Formula One survive the media storm? Every question leads to more uncertainty. Every headline adds fuel. Hamilton hasn't spoken publicly since the clause was activated. But those close to him say his demeanor has changed. He feels liberated, focused, as if the weight of a misguided partnership has been lifted. He knows this could be his final, defining move. One last campaign to rewrite history, not in red, but possibly in Red Bull blue. And the fact that this option now exists, just months after joining Ferrari, is proof that in Formula One, nothing is permanent. Not loyalty. Not contracts. Not even legends. The drama is only just beginning. And Formula One will never be the same. The atmosphere inside the Formula One paddock has become increasingly volatile as negotiations between Lewis Hamilton's trusted inner circle and Red Bull Racing edge dangerously close to completion, triggering a wave of panic, confusion, and tension across multiple teams. What initially began as subtle background noise, a few curious glances, whispers behind closed hospitality suite doors, has now evolved into one of the most explosive and secretive maneuvers the sport has witnessed in over a decade. The gravity of Hamilton potentially aligning with Red Bull has reached a level that even seasoned insiders struggle to comprehend. This is not just about a change of team. This is a high-stakes, high-drama, high-impact shift that could alter the balance of power in Formula One for years to come. Hamilton's longtime right-hand man, Mark Hines, has been personally overseeing the entire process with a level of strategic caution that rivals military intelligence operations. The meetings have not just been discreet, they've been surgical. Two were held under maximum confidentiality in Monaco, far away from team media zones and spy lenses. The third was staged with almost absurd secrecy during the Red Bull Ring weekend in Austria, with Hamilton participating remotely via encrypted digital communication platforms designed to leave no metadata behind. These weren't casual conversations. These were hour-long negotiations involving contractual language, legal structures, technical transparency, and psychological dynamics inside Red Bull Racing. Hamilton reportedly grilled Red Bull engineers on data about tire degradation, development priorities for the upcoming power unit shift in 2026, and how real decision-making flows within the Verstappen-dominated hierarchy. It was clear to everyone in the room, or rather in the call, that this was a driver thinking long-term legacy, not just race wins. Within Hamilton's inner circle, the move is being referred to as Operation Redemption, an opportunity to secure that eighth elusive world championship not in survival mode but in total domination. The allure of Red Bull's machinery, unmatched in performance for 3 consecutive seasons, is too great to ignore. Combined with Honda's farewell integration and the new power unit partnership brewing in Milton Keynes, Hamilton sees this as his final and best chance to take back control of his narrative, especially after seasons marred by questionable strategy calls and intra-team politics at Ferrari. He's reportedly convinced that Red Bull's precision, innovation culture, and relentless execution could finally give him the perfect weapon to destroy the last lingering ghosts of 2021. Inside Ferrari, the response has been cataclysmic. Frédéric Vasseur, a man known for his measured temperament, has been described by those close to him as shattered and incandescent with fury. Sources embedded within the team say the moment Vasseur found out about the advanced stage of Hamilton's negotiations with Red Bull, he went from calm to confrontational in minutes. Rather than seeking PR control or staging a quiet meeting, he stormed into the driver's quarters after the British Grand Prix and demanded a private audience with Hamilton. The confrontation was immediate, aggressive, and deeply personal. Eyewitnesses describe voices raised high enough to be heard through soundproofed walls, and tension thick enough to paralyze the rest of the team. Vasseur is said to have accused Hamilton of betrayal, of manipulating the media with carefully timed soundbites that painted Ferrari as dysfunctional, and of creating internal divisions that have made Leclerc's camp increasingly uncomfortable. He reportedly questioned Hamilton's commitment, his attitude in technical briefings, and his loyalty to the team's long-term goals. Hamilton, in turn, did not hold back. He reportedly unleashed months of pent-up frustration, claiming he had been systematically undermined, ignored in strategy discussions, and sidelined when it mattered most. One phrase allegedly spoken by Hamilton during the argument has already become legendary within the paddock: "I was brought here to lead, not to be sacrificed." The comment stunned even the closest members of the Ferrari leadership team, many of whom believed tensions were high, but not this high. What made the situation worse was the fact that Hamilton reportedly arrived at the meeting with screenshots of media reports, telemetry analysis, and strategic breakdowns that he used as evidence to support his case. He pointed out specific race calls, pit wall decisions, and tire selections that he argued were biased in favor of Leclerc. Vasseur is said to have responded by defending the team's engineers and insisting that all decisions were made based on data, not favoritism. But the damage was already done. The two men parted without a handshake, without eye contact, and with an unspoken understanding that the working relationship had been irreversibly fractured. Since then, the mood inside Ferrari's garage has soured dramatically. Communication between the Leclerc and Hamilton camps has all but vanished. Team briefings now feel like two separate conversations happening in parallel universes. Mechanics have reportedly requested to be reassigned within the garage to avoid friction. Even Ferrari's external sponsors have noticed a shift, with several corporate partners privately expressing concern about the escalating drama affecting their brand visibility. Internal emails between departments have grown colder. Engineers now avoid referring to the drivers by name, opting instead for terms like Car 16 and Car 44 to maintain neutrality. At Red Bull, however, the tone is drastically different. While no one is publicly confirming the discussions, multiple high-level staff members are already preparing contingency plans for what they now see as a realistic scenario. Red Bull Racing's leadership, particularly Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, are fully aware of the storm this move would create, not only inside their own team but across the sport. But they also recognize the magnitude of what's possible. Hamilton's brand value, his global reach, and his legacy potential could take Red Bull's identity from dominant to mythical. There are serious talks about customizing the car ergonomically for Hamilton's unique driving posture, adding technical staff that understand his setup language, and even shifting simulator hours to accommodate his preferences should he join the team. No stone is being left unturned. Verstappen, for his part, has remained cryptically silent. Close sources suggest he's watching every development carefully, fully aware of the political earthquake that could erupt if he and Hamilton were placed in the same machinery. Some insiders believe Verstappen sees it as an opportunity to silence all remaining doubters. Others believe he considers it a disruption that could destabilize his rhythm. Either way, the garage is bracing for a potential reconfiguration of its entire identity. Engineers are being briefed on non-disclosure expansions, marketing teams are working overtime on contingency brand rollouts, and legal advisors have begun reviewing potential multi-driver conflict clauses to prevent internal combustion once both stars share the same pit box. As the paddock stares into the eye of this incoming storm, one thing is clear: if Lewis Hamilton truly makes the leap to Red Bull Racing, it won't just be a new chapter in his career. It will be an entirely new book, written in fire, forged in controversy, and destined to shake the very core of what it means to be part of Formula One's elite. In the quiet corridors of Maranello, long after the garages were emptied and the telemetry screens turned black, the truth began to set in. What began as a historic partnership between Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, a headline that once shook the sport to its core, was now unraveling in real time behind closed doors. Frederic Vasseur, who had lobbied hard to bring the seven-time world champion into the scarlet-red garage, now found himself at the epicenter of a decision that could define, or dismantle, Ferrari's trajectory for the next decade. The romanticism was gone. What remained was cold strategy. The meetings that followed weren't just managerial check-ins, they were interventions. John Elkann, never one to appear rattled, reportedly entered the room with a dossier thick with internal reports, sponsor concerns, and branding forecasts. Benedetto Vigna, a man obsessed with metrics and future-forward branding, brought his own data, a complex analysis not just of race results but of social sentiment, internal morale, and the cascading effect that Hamilton's presence had triggered across the engineering and strategic departments. The energy wasn't confrontational. It was surgical. What was once an opportunity had morphed into a riddle, one that no longer had a profitable answer. Hamilton's arrival had lifted expectations to mythical levels. But behind the glamour, beneath the sea of red flags waving in his honor, friction grew like mold under polished chrome. Leclerc, the local hero turned de facto team leader, had not only matched Hamilton on track, he had eclipsed him internally. Technicians began whispering about strategy tweaks that seemed to favor the Monegasque. Pit crews allegedly adjusted tire choices based on Leclerc's preference even when data leaned the other way. A quiet rebellion against the hierarchy had formed, not in open defiance, but in subtle, persistent decisions that slowly eroded Hamilton's standing. What had been marketed as a two-leader team was in reality tipping toward a single axis. Behind the scenes, the rift extended beyond the drivers. Engineering leads clashed over setup philosophies. Data analysts were divided between old-school gut instinct and algorithmic modeling. Communication staff, caught between conflicting driver narratives, scrambled to maintain unity in the press. Every department, it seemed, was bending under the weight of expectation and the psychological warfare of favoritism. By mid-season, The emotional cost of having two alphas in one stable was evident. Vasseur, once convinced the pairing could elevate the team, now saw it differently. The dream was eating itself alive. Ferrari's upper brass reached an unofficial consensus that shocked even those closest to the negotiations. They wouldn't fight. They wouldn't beg. If Hamilton wanted to leave, the door would remain open, not as punishment, but as liberation. For both parties. There would be no press release full of pleasantries, no behind-the-scenes campaign to twist his arm. The word circulating in Maranello was simple: release him with dignity, rebuild with clarity. Outside the Ferrari bubble, the motorsport world had already begun spinning its own version of events. Red Bull, locked in a championship battle but hungry for strategic depth, began moving like a shadow in the fog. Reports from within the Milton Keynes facility suggested that a special team had been tasked with creating hypothetical race scenarios with Hamilton behind the wheel of the RB21. Not just simulations, but full-blown strategy overlays, projecting his tire management patterns, his risk tolerance on lap 1 overtakes, his behavior under safety car deployments. It wasn't idle curiosity. It was due diligence. In the simulator rooms where careers are dissected millisecond by millisecond, Hamilton's ghost laps were reportedly compared against Verstappen's current baselines, not to replace the Dutchman, but to test the viability of cohabitation. Some insiders claim Red Bull was particularly impressed by Hamilton's adaptability to high-speed corner entry instability, something Verstappen has mastered but most struggle with. The idea began to take hold. Maybe, just maybe, the pairing wasn't impossible. Maybe it was inevitable. Verstappen's response to the rumors was a masterclass in psychological control. When pressed, he didn't flinch, didn't rant, didn't posture. "I like competition," he said with a smirk, then pivoted to tire degradation. But within the Red Bull compound, things were less composed. Advisors debated what such a move would do to the internal hierarchy. Technical directors quietly raised concerns about balancing feedback from two radically different driving styles. Marketing executives, however, reportedly lit up at the possibility. Hamilton and Verstappen in the same garage wasn't just sport, it was a global cultural event. Sergio Perez, caught in the eye of this gathering storm, began disappearing in ways that went unnoticed only by the uninformed. Fewer media appearances. A guarded tone in briefings. No longer a face of Red Bull's global campaigns. His silence, once brushed off as focus, now read like resignation. Those close to his camp hinted that he'd already been briefed on potential options. A soft landing at FCARB, a potential return to a restructured Racing Bulls project, or an ambassadorial role split between racing and mentorship. Nothing confirmed. Everything suggested. And in the Hamilton camp, total blackout. No quotes. No denials. Just silence that felt orchestrated. But beneath that silence, sources near his longtime personal team say the British driver is more focused than ever. Not angry. Not bitter. Focused. What began as a legacy move has now become a redemption arc. He doesn't just want to drive fast. He wants to prove that his name still bends the direction of the sport. He's tired of being the ceremonial icon. Tired of watching others take precedence in strategy rooms he once commanded. Tired of seeing his feedback sidelined in favor of a younger narrative. He wants a weapon. A car that fights. A team that listens. A teammate that challenges him. And above all, he wants silence turned into performance. For Hamilton, the Red Bull rumors aren't just tempting, they're alive. And if they turn real, the paddock becomes something it hasn't been in years: unpredictable. This isn't just about a team change. It's about rewriting the second half of a legacy that everyone thought was already etched in stone. If the move happens, no contract clause, no media barrier, no historical bias will protect anyone. Every session becomes a measuring contest. Every radio message becomes headline fodder. Every glance between the two drivers a potential explosion. The sport would enter a new age overnight, not one of technical evolution, but narrative chaos. A universe where the once dominant Mercedes hero stands shoulder to shoulder with a man who took his crown, in a garage built for one king. The fans would swarm. The media would obsess. And every race would feel like a season finale. Because in this version of reality, no one is safe. Not reputations. Not alliances. Not legacies. The moment Hamilton and Red Bull meet at the crossroads, should that moment arrive, Formula One will no longer be a championship. It will become theater. And the world won't just watch. It will be consumed. Every corner of the racing world is vibrating with tension. In the garages, in boardrooms, in private jets crossing continents, and in encrypted message threads between lawyers and team principals, the future of Formula One is being rewritten, quietly, methodically, and with a kind of secrecy reserved for international diplomacy. The intensity is suffocating. Everyone knows that something enormous is brewing, something that could crack the established order wide open and flood the sport with chaos, drama, and an entirely new narrative. Conversations that were once casual are now cautious. Smiles between rival team members feel forced. And each word uttered by a top driver or team boss is analyzed with a level of scrutiny normally reserved for legal testimony. At the center of this storm is a potential switch so staggering, so disruptive, so historically loaded that insiders are comparing it to the greatest team transfers in the history of motorsport. This isn't just another contract negotiation or a calculated step in a long career. This feels like a battle plan being drawn up by two empires preparing to change the balance of power in ways that will echo for years. The discussions are not being held across a coffee table. They're taking place in war rooms, with confidentiality clauses thicker than technical regulations and entourages sworn to silence under threat of career ruin. It's not about money anymore. It's about legacy, control, and the need to leave a permanent mark on the sport's DNA. The pace of developments is almost impossible to track. One moment, well-placed sources claim everything is finalized, with the announcement merely waiting for the green light. The next, a respected journalist suggests that several key figures are still negotiating final terms, working through commercial details that involve not just race seats but media rights, sponsorship alignments, simulator programs, and future ambassadorial roles. The complexity of the situation is breathtaking. We're no longer just talking about who will drive what car. We're talking about reshaping dynasties, dismantling partnerships that took years to build, and forcing a recalibration of expectations throughout the entire grid. The summer break is being whispered about as a potential detonation point. Strategically, it's perfect, a rare pause in the chaos of the calendar where teams can refocus, drivers can realign their mental game, and the media machine can be used to spin the narrative just enough to maintain control while the storm rages. But others argue the next Grand Prix could be the setting for the bombshell, capitalizing on the maximum media visibility and the heightened emotional energy surrounding a major race weekend. Whichever moment is chosen, one thing is clear: it will not be accidental. Every second of timing will be calculated, every sentence in the press release crafted for maximum impact, and every image in the social rollout designed to go viral instantly. Fans can feel it. The energy online is electric. Threads are exploding with speculation, theories are being compiled like case files, and slow-motion videos of paddock interactions are being reviewed as if they contain hidden codes. Rival fanbases are already drawing battle lines, predicting outcomes, projecting alliances and betrayals, and imagining the press conferences that could redefine relationships between the most powerful figures in racing. The excitement isn't just about the sport, it's about the soap opera, the theater, the unpredictable chaos that only Formula One can deliver when its foundations start to crack. The emotional weight of the decision is equally staggering. For the driver allegedly involved, it's a leap not just into a new cockpit, but into a furnace of expectations. It means giving up the familiar, walking away from systems built around their preferences, and entering an environment where trust must be rebuilt from zero, while the entire world watches. For the team, it's a gamble with enormous upside but a dangerous potential for collapse. They're not just buying talent, they're bringing in a force of personality, a media magnet, and a potential disruptor to team harmony. Internally, even among loyal mechanics and engineers, there's quiet uncertainty. Will the new dynamic strengthen the team or tear it apart? Current teammates may say all the right things, but behind their smiles are calculations. A new face in the garage means shifted priorities, new politics, new lines drawn on the whiteboard in the strategy room. Every driver knows that coexisting with another top-tier talent under the same roof can quickly descend into warfare, and history has shown how quickly alliances turn into rivalries. The possibility of two elite minds, two fiercely driven competitors, operating within inches of one another day after day creates the perfect breeding ground for a drama that goes far beyond the stopwatch. Even broadcasters are preparing. Pre-season documentaries are already planning how to capture the narrative arc. Sponsors are adjusting budgets and marketing plans. Social media teams are rehearsing their rollout strategies. Influencers are ready to flood timelines with reaction videos, and merchandise suppliers are working overtime in case they need to mass-produce gear tied to a new era. This move, if it happens, is not just a sporting decision. It's a commercial juggernaut waiting to be unleashed. Every stakeholder is preparing to ride the wave or be swallowed by it. And then there's the rivalry itself, because no one believes this switch would happen quietly. There will be clashes. There will be cold shoulders in driver briefings, icy stares on the podium, and mind games played in press conferences. Every overtake, every radio message, every mechanical issue will be interpreted through the lens of this new alignment. One poor result will spark a firestorm. One comment taken out of context will flood headlines. The pressure will be astronomical. But it's also why fans can't look away. It's the unpredictability, the tension, the sense that at any moment, something massive could erupt. That's what makes Formula One feel more alive than ever. No one truly knows what the next few days will bring. There are too many moving pieces, too many egos, too much at stake. But what is undeniable is that the sport is standing on the edge of a revolution. And when the news finally breaks, the landscape will never look the same again.